Good morning, everybody. Welcome to everybody here who's joining us at Plymouth in the building and also joining us online. We're glad that you are with us today. We have a special Sunday. We always have a special Sunday, but this is special in a different way. Reverend Phil Hodson is here as our conference minister to give us our message and to do a question and answer after the service. So I'm really, really glad that you are here, and it's wonderful to be graced with your presence and with Zane's presence as well. Hopefully he has a good time. So thank you for that. And again, hope you stay for the question and answer after we're going to stream that as well as do stuff, have those questions here in the building. We're going to start a new venture, a new ministry. It's not going to be like a big thing with lots of infrastructure. We're going to expand something that we already do, and it's going to be called the Full Moon Drum Circle. So I got a little applause. So on the full moon, starting in March, on the full moon, we're going to gather together to drum and to walk the labyrinth, and during months when it's not too hot, to have a sacred fire so that we could do our sacred burning. And we're going to keep doing our solstice and our equinox celebrations. And when one is like a week away from the other, maybe we'll meet twice, maybe we'll decide to do it once, I don't know. But just to have us gather together a few more times outside to feel that spiritual energy. So I'm really excited about starting that in March. Let's see, what else? We're still in red for Harris County, but I talked to my doctor the other day, and she said it looks like it's going to be de-escalating soon, so hopefully we'll be able to sing again in person. So thank you for your patience with wearing masks, for not singing songs, for enjoying the music while Marshall and I play. And so with that, let's bring ourselves fully to this time and to this place. Imagine yourself as a tree. With the roots of your tree going deep down into the earth to center you, to give you a grounding. And as your roots tap down further and further to find water source, to find nourishment, your trunk also becomes strong and sturdy. And you branch out. And during certain seasons, you have leaves or fronds or whatever kind of tree that you are imagining yourself to be. And all of this tree nature that we've talked about is that physical part of you, your embodiment. And it is strong to withstand. What else happens? As a tree, I mean, we don't maybe think about the emotional, the intellectual, or the spiritual aspects. I don't know if trees themselves think, but we, in the metaphor of the tree, do. So as you're growing, what information are you being bombarded with, and how are you going deep with those thoughts, like with your roots, and how are you becoming strong and sturdy with your trunk and branching out with your branches and leafing out? And are you being buffeted in any way? And how are you sustained by this core strength? How are you with your emotional roots going down into the ground, into what is centering for you? How does your emotional trunk grow and become the sturdy kind of essence that you need it to be for your branches to gather up all the sunshine and the rain that are the emotions that come to you, just like they come intellectually and physically? How do you receive the good stuff, and let the other stuff kind of wick off of you. Imagine your spiritual roots going into the ground, seeking out through meditation, through prayer, what is nourishing in that earth that is rich, growing you into a spiritual trunk that is strong, branching out, leafing out spiritually, taking risks to go high into the sky, getting the nourishment from the sun, from the rain, from the moon, from the air. Allow yourself to be this tree and know that you are strong. Even if there's a branch dangling at one place or your leaves are falling off in another, it's an opportunity for new growth. And as a whole tree, with your physical attributes, the way you think, your emotions, and your spirit, you are vital. And we connect with one another through our root system. We connect with one another through the way our leaves rustle in the air and talk to each other, through the way we share the nourishment that gets spread around. Take a breath and let us be together as one big glorious forest in this time and in this place.
Please join me in the call to worship. Those who are thirsty, come to the fount that will not dry up. We bring our thirst here to be quenched. Those who are weary, Spirit is a ready refuge. Those who feel lost, come to the one who knows the way. Lead us by the hand, by our hearts, and by hope. The biblical witness this morning comes from the book of Jeremiah, chapter 18, verses 1 through 10. God told Jeremiah, "Up on your feet, go to the potter's house. When you get there, I'll tell you what I have to say." So I went to the potter's house, and sure enough, the potter was there, working away at his wheel. Whenever the potter was working on turned out badly, this sometimes happens when you're working with clay, the potter would simply start over and use the same clay to make another pot. Then God's message came to me. Can I do just as this potter does, people of Israel? God's decree. Watch this potter. In the same way that this potter works his clay, I work on you, people of Israel. At any moment, I may decide to pull up a people or a country by the roots and get rid of them. But if they repent of their wicked lives, I will think twice and start over with them. At another time, I might decide to plant a people or a country. But if they don't cooperate and won't listen to me, I'll think again and give up on the plans I had for them.
Now I'd like to introduce Reverend Phil Hudson.
I love that passage. I love that passage because it's visually rich, right? The words, they paint a picture that is so crystal clear. As you hear it being read, you can see it in your mind's eye. You can see it in your mind's eye, and the words then become stronger because the image that they project reinforces them in the brain and then stamps them on the heart. How many have ever seen a potter spinning clay? Yeah. You know, what's interesting is it moves pretty fast, but it's really intricate, delicate work. One mistake, and the potter will stop spinning, and that pot will dissolve into this smoosh of wet clay. And then they have to begin the process all over again. But they're using the ingredients, the resources they've already got right there, and they craft something entirely new out of what previously existed. Pottery involves that which is tangible, okay? Tangible. Stuff like the clay, the wheel, the water, and the hands of that potter at work. But it also involves the intangible, the mind and the imagination of that potter to craft something unique with each turn. The heart of that potter to keep after it, right after it dissolves into that smoosh and they begin the process again. This morning, I want you to think about both tangibles and intangibles. And this morning, we're going to take a trip back in time. Did anybody bring their time machine? So we're going to go back to 2019. Anybody remember 2019? Vaguely, way back there in the recesses of your mind, you're going, We're going to go back there for just a little bit. And I should have warned you, I am a dialogical preacher, okay? Which means occasionally I'm going to ask you to participate in conversation with me and just respond loudly. If you don't respond, the sermon gets longer. Okay, that's how this works. So, in 2019, name for me, please, one tangible thing in the life of your congregation, Plymouth, that was going on. Something that you could measure and quantify, like with numbers and, or utilize, like clay or water. One thing.
Pumpkin patch.
Pumpkin patch, yes! Very good. What about an intangible? An intangible thing. What were the parts of imagination, of creativity that were just flowing back then in the life of this congregation that were a blessing to the gathered community? Name one thing.
The Mental Health Committee.
The Mental Health Committee, yes. Yes, an incredible work. Back in 2019, I was a local pastor serving a church. And the congregation I was serving had a long list of tangible and intangible things that in 2019 we were pretty good about, just going down. We could tick those off right quick. We had faithful people, the ones that you could count on week in and week out, but boy, you didn't ever sit in their seat, right? You know anybody like that? We had a steady influx of new people week in and week out in 2019. At that point, we were growing 40% end over end year after year with new people. We were establishing our voice in the wider community across Wichita, Kansas as Wichita's progressive Christian voice. We were laying down the roots that Matt talked about this morning. We were parking those deep. And that was happening for us. And we had just navigated through a successful church merger where two congregations became one and gave birth to a new thing. And if you know anything about church mergers, there's one right way to do it and 900 wrong ways. And we made it. We made it. People were energized, right? Plans were drawn and money had been invested to build a film studio on our campus. And this was going to be the first phase of what would be a multi-year renovation project, a massive undertaking, bigger than they had ever done before. And the second week of January 2020, our equipment began to arrive. It was like a delayed Christmas, all these boxes coming in. And so we busily set about installing pieces of it in between our Sunday and Wednesday gatherings. Volunteers were always there and something was always happening. Does anybody remember what that felt like? It started taking shape and form and it was looking good. We finished the installation and the testing of our new gear on March 7th, 2020. On Sunday, March the 8th, we weren't ready to turn the key quite yet. And there were 146 people in worship that morning to celebrate what we were about to do. And it was glorious, and there was singing, and the music was good, and the energy was incredible. And as a pastor, it's one of those days you just live for, right? Like Christmas Eve being the Super Bowl of church, this was one of those Sundays. It was just on fire. We knew where we wanted to go. We were united. And we had a clear idea of what would come for us next. And then came Friday, March 13th, 2020. And everything changed. And the pottery wheel that we were moving so fast with and working so well with stopped. And our carefully crafted work looked like a blob of wet clay at the bottom of the wheel. Suddenly we were worshiping online with small group studies on Zoom and pastoral visits by telephone only. People were invited to mail their pledges to the church, where once a week somebody went to pick them up and take them to the bank through the drive-thru and then go home, and otherwise it was a ghost town. Nobody was ever there. We became an entirely remote organization, separated from one another physically, available to each other digitally so long as the connection didn't drop. Anybody remember that? Yeah. All of us pivoted. I used to coach basketball at the Y when we were in Wichita for two of my sons. And you know what a pivot is, right? You plant your feet, and then you turn. And then you turn. And your body is basically in the same place it was before. You've just shifted your position. That's a pivot. We did a lot of amazing things in the pivot that happened to all of our churches in 2020. Through all that disruption, and we saw God move in mighty ways among us. Amen? There were things that we lost in that pivot. Things that we haven't gotten back now, and it's been 23 months. What are the tangible things that we have lost, Plymouth, that we're not seeing appear yet in our lives as a community or even individually? What's a tangible thing that we've lost that's not back yet? Fellowship. What else? Yes. What else? What about intangibles? What about intangible things, those imaginative, creative feats of then that aren't present now? What do you think? Fellowship, yeah. The conversation that came up, the generative part of fellowship, right? Yes. Yes. Just like the potter spinning the pot in the passage you heard from Jeremiah this morning, there was a vision, all of us in every one of our congregations, for where we were going. We knew what our finished products would look like because we'd seen it before. All of us knew how to do church before COVID, right? We knew how to do church. We knew what colors we would paint the finished product. We knew where we would place it in our lives to admire it, and then, poof, it was gone. So here's my question for you. Some of those things are going to come back. We will have coffee again. But some of those things won't. Some of them aren't coming back. Here's my question. Have you grieved those losses? And I mean really named them, articulated them, put words and flesh upon them, and then shed a tear for them. Not a tear of desperate yearning for yesteryear or when it will return, but a tear of blessing, thanksgiving, and release. Have you prayed over them the words that, as a pastor, I offer at every funeral I've ever given? Into your hands, O Lord, into your hands, O Lord, we commit these spirits. I hope that you have. I hope that you will. And I know that sounds kind of macabre, right? Well, that's depressing. And I don't want to be glib about this, because I take grief seriously as a pastor. I take grief seriously. This is important, church, that we do this as part of our communal life together, because the hardest part of loving somebody or something in our lives is letting them go. And that's the most powerful thing that we can do over the course of our lives. We are confronted with blessing and releasing things over and over and over again. Otherwise, we find ourselves simply sleeping with the past. And then we miss out on the present. And that's the thing about the past in every circumstance. We can only experience the past through our present moment. We can't go back and relive it. We can only interpret it through the moment we find ourselves in right now. When I asked you to go back to 2019, you didn't physically go back there or rewind your brain to that place. You interpreted that moment, those moments, that experience through the lens of this present one right here, right now. That's always how it works. You named some tangible and intangible things from before that haven't come back yet. Are there any others you want to name right now? Any others you want to name? I want you to take a moment, and maybe you're just naming them in your heart or your mind. But I want you to take a moment and really think about that. Ponder those. And name them, even if only in the silence of your heart. What other things used to exist in your individual life or the life of your gathered community that don't yet now, that you can name? New members. Children's, yes. Live choir. Oh. Singing. Sunday school. What else? I want you to pray with me. Into your hands, O Lord, we commit these spirits. Just as you gave them to us, now we give them back to you. A couple of months back, I had the opportunity to preach in one of our historically stronger congregations. And being new to the South Central Conference, you elected me in April, and I started on July 16th. I'm still learning what that is, okay? I'm somewhere new every week. That's the neat thing about conference ministry. If you don't really know what a conference minister is or does, here's the easiest way I know to describe it. Think of a high church tradition like the Methodists or the Catholics, not the really political example I want, but the Methodists will do. And a conference minister is like a bishop, except I have a lot less bling and even less authority. Okay? And then you have a conference minister. But I was visiting with one of our historically stronger churches in one of our regions. There's 4 regions or associations. The territory that the South Central Conference covers is all of Texas except El Paso, Louisiana, and I-10 in Mississippi south of I-10. Although the conference minister in Atlanta and I continue to argue about that. all right? But we have one of our churches in one of these 4 zones, regions, territories, and I was there and I was preaching, and they are considered among the churches in their region to be the biggest, the strongest, and the best. And 32 people showed up. 32 people in this giant room. Giant. Bearing in mind, this is one of the first places I visited as your conference minister, and my last Sunday in a physical pulpit, I had 146. And this struck me as I was walking out of the room. I had my mask on, and I'm walking with the pastor, and I turned to them and I said, God bless you, I don't know how you do this. I'd be frustrated. I'd be stressed. And they turned to me and they said, I'm still preaching for the ones who aren't here yet. I'm still preaching for the ones who aren't here yet. And something clicked in my brain. I went, aha, that new member's point. There is something coming, friends. There is something coming, and in that case, that pastor and I began that very week to talk about this and really flesh it out, and we started to cast a vision together, asking, what if we took the resources we've still got, that smoosh of wet clay at the bottom of the wheel, and knowing that the vision that we had before isn't going to come? What if we took those resources and we combined them to craft something entirely new? In that place, that new thing would be 150 people strong with more money than ever through the sale of old buildings in a hot real estate market. It would take multiple congregations, keep their staffs, not let anybody go, and create something new as one body, serving in several locations, each with a smaller footprint than they had before, with newer buildings that cost less to operate, with people ready to actually serve their neighbors unencumbered by committee meetings and responsibilities they'd had before in previous forms. And we said, you know what? That could change lives. That could change lives. That's something worth pursuing. I visited with another pastor just this week who lamented the congregations we are losing in this moment. When I came on board in July, we had 61 churches across our conference. At this point, there will be 55 at the end of 2022 if nobody else leaves or closes. I have done renewal work throughout my ministry. And so as I listened to this pastor lament, I just leaned back into that, and true to form, I reminded this pastor that it is typical to preach a congregation down before you preach them back up again. That's normal. That's how it's supposed to work. I'm not worried about the churches we're going to lose. I'm not worried about them. And I don't want you to hear that as being flippant, but as being pragmatic. Okay? Because the center of gravity in our conference has shifted. And it shifted long before I got here. Our states are growing more urban. That's happening. And we've watched it happen. No congregation can stop it from happening. The whole denomination can't stop it from happening. It's happening. And all we can do is just adapt to that reality on a broad scale and in each of our unique contexts in order to participate in receiving a blessing from that transition. The movement that I'm talking about is unique, at least in Texas and Louisiana historically, because that movement isn't coming from people moving from small towns in Texas into the big city. That's how it used to be, right? You'd go from small town to big city, and that's how the growth happened. It's not happening that way anymore. They're coming to Austin and San Antonio and Dallas and Houston from Colorado and California and New York. And they're bringing their values with them. Progressive Christian values and a hunger for community in a place where they know no one. They want to connect. They want to share in an embodiment of something that meets their spiritual needs, their theological needs, our theological lens. This is the blessing that awaits us to receive. This is what I want you to know. I asked you to name some things this morning. We blessed them. We released them. Some of them will come back. We will have coffee again. We will sing again. We will have children's time again. But some of them will not come back. Some of them won't. And we're going to need to be at peace with that, church. That peace will take some time to achieve. We will need to grieve. But we've got to get there. We've got to get there because of this opportunity that lies ahead for us. All of us on the other side of where we are right now. This liminal space between the crucifixion of what was and the empty tomb of what will be, will pass. We need to make ready. In every one of our congregations, a liminal space is good for that. Because the blob in that potter's wheel, it will take shape and form. It will dry and be given brilliant colors. It will stand as a testament to the power of God in the world that brings hope to many. And it will consist of tangibles and intangibles in the lives of every single one of our congregations that chooses to receive this blessing. The color will come from those who are not here yet. And it will embody God saying, "Behold, I am doing a new thing. Do you not perceive it? It will be glorious." What are the tangibles and the intangibles that remain in your communal life together? That which gives hope to your spirit. How can you channel those things that we've still got in new and creative ways? We adapted, we pivoted to be ready for the moment we find ourselves in, and now we must create something new. In the church, we spend a lot of time talking about our mission. Our mission. Can I have my table, please? The mission is that flower pot on the table that you see before you right now. We build that mission on top of programs. That's the tabletop programs. More programs equals a stronger mission, right? Historically in the church, that's what we thought. Throughout the 20th century, that's what we did. That was called the era of Christendom. Something for everybody. But those programs, it turns out, are supported by the four legs of the table: management, governance, financial resources, and administrative systems. Those four legs. If the legs of that table, the foundation upon which it stands, are wobbly, if governance and financial management are toothpicks, for example, what happens? The table breaks, right? And everything falls down. The mission fails. In this liminal space that we are in right now, I'm going to be inviting our conference board of directors and staff to examine the legs of our table to reduce, not increase, the programs on top of it for a while, so that we can strengthen our foundation. This is going to change our focus. It isn't sexy, it isn't exciting, but it's absolutely necessary. We, as one example, bought a new financial management software this year that we are instituting, and it will create clearer accountability and simpler, more transparent financial oversight. So when we come and we say, "It's OCWM time," you know exactly where your dollars are going and how they're changing lives. All right? Not sexy. Not exciting. It will also allow us to offer bookkeeping services to our smaller congregations as a service that the conference can professionally provide with integrity and transparency and accountability. We like the sound of this. You know what? Here's the cool thing, and here's my plug, and we can talk about it later. We won't actually touch your money at all. It's all just bookkeeping. All right? You're going to make your own deposits. You do your own thing. We just manage the paperwork and save time. And that allows churches to focus on what? The mission. The mission. We are going to put our staff in pods, and we're going to focus their work. Right now, when I got here in the conference, everybody did everything. Right? My camp guy was involved in search and call, and it was all over the map. Not anymore. Each one of us has designated responsibilities, and we're going to fulfill them. We're going to reimagine what our governing structure looks like as a conference and how we complete our daily workflow. That's what liminal space is for. Somebody called me the other day, and they said, "I don't hear much about what's going on in the conference. Is everything okay?" And that call made me smile. It made me happy if you're curious about what's going on in the conference, I encourage you to go to our website, sccucc.org, and sign up for the newsletter. Every week we'll tell you what's going on in the conference, okay? But that call made me happy because we are not the center of attention. Our role, my role as your conference minister and the role of my staff is to support you, church, to get you the resources, the coaching, and the help that you need to increase your success in the mission field. The local church and our clergy in specialized ministry are the core of who we are called to be. And right now, friends, most especially, that's our hospital chaplains. It is the honor of my life to be pastor to 215 incredible pastors among you in the South Central Conference. In our churches, in our hospitals, in university chaplain work, in so many places doing incredible work. The conference is intended to guide, equip, and cheer you on. That's it. This is how we are preparing for the new creation about to spring forth in our midst. What about you? How will you channel those tangible and intangible resources that God has placed in your path into more specific, targeted, and healthy directions? How will you refashion? How will you reorganize your own table? As your conference minister, my hope is that along the way, you will invite us into that process to coach, to guide, to equip, and to cheer for you. I pray, Plymouth, that you will release the blob and see what God does. Make ready, my friends, for while we may not perceive it with clear eyes yet, I am certain that God is indeed doing something new, and it will be beautiful so long as we prepare ourselves to be fashioned for and by it. How do I know? I'm looking at it right here, right now, today, this very moment, with you. May it be so for you. Amen. And amen.
Gonna lay down my burden down by the riverside, down by the riverside, down by the riverside. Gonna lay down my burden down by the riverside, down by the riverside, the riverside. I ain't gonna study war no more. Ain't gonna study war no more. Ain't gonna study war no more. No more. Ain't gonna study war no more. Ain't gonna study war no more. Down by the riverside, the riverside. It's me, oh Lord, standing in the need of prayer. It's me, oh Lord, standing in the need of prayer. Not my brother, not my sister, but it's me, oh Lord, standing in the need of prayer. Not my mother, not my father, but it's me, oh Lord, standing in the need of prayer. It's me, oh Lord, standing in the need of prayer. It's me, oh Lord, standing by the riverside. Gonna lay down my sword and shield down by the riverside, down by the riverside, down by the riverside. Gonna lay down my sword and shield down by the riverside, down by the river, down by the river, down by the river. It's me, oh Lord, standing in the need of prayer.
when I sat down on that chair, it muted. I didn't do it on my own. Anyway, so I'm going to go back and say this was the perfect time, for those of you online, this was the perfect time for Reverend Phil to be here, because Lent is coming up, and Lent is a time when you do reflection, and you grapple with hard things. And so what I wanted to do for us for Lent this year, and you'll be getting, hopefully, did y'all get the postcard in the mail about? Yes, it works. Mail works. You're gonna get another thing in the mail coming up soon. I'm going to do a paper making ritual for Lent. So there's 5 weeks of Lent. So the first week of Lent, we're going to meditate that week on the griefs that we have personally in the pandemic. I don't know if this is exactly the first week or the second, but the theory is 1 week is going to be our personal losses and our griefs. And we're going to write things down, whether when we're here in church, and for those of you at home, you can write them down and send them in, and I'm going to have a paper shredder. And we're going to pray over them, and we're going to ritually shred all of these things. Week after week, there's going to be what griefs and losses do we have here in the church? What griefs and losses do we have with our work and family life? And we're going to go through these, and then it's going to culminate in, now we're going to have a big pot of water 1 week, and we're going to take and we're going to soak all these paper shreds, all of our griefs and our losses, our pains, our injuries, and all of that. And we're going to soak them in this thing of water, put them on a screen, and let them dry. Because every year we have an Easter art project. And this year our Easter art project is going to be us. And we're going to resurrect all of that into a brand new piece or pieces of paper. And we're going to say, this is our lives transformed, being made new. Now, I'm not preaching right now. I have to remind myself I'm not preaching. I just got very excited because what you said is exactly what we're going into. And so I'm hoping that it generates some energy for all of us to say, this is the time. Lent is the perfect time to be moving in this way. So very excited, and I hope that everybody participates to the fullness of their ability, because this isn't just paper shredding for the sake of paper shredding. It's for the sake of finding all those nooks and crannies that are getting in the way, that's stopping us from being free, stopping us from that abundant life. So I'm really excited about it. It's hard grieving, though, isn't it? Takes a little bit of extra work. So let's join our hearts right now in a moment of prayer. Holy Love, we are who we are. And we're not trying to run away from the essence of who we are, from our lives, from our communities, from the systems that we live in, but we are wanting to use our energy to live the best life possible, individually and as communities and within the systems that we're in. And some of our systems are awful, which is one of the reasons that we make a point to celebrate Black History Month on February with the whole United States, to remind ourselves that there are systems in place for our Black Americans that are just awful, that need to be changed, and there are wonderful voices to be celebrated and experiences to be lifted up and history to be recognized in ways that we have not recognized it before. And so we put ourselves in the places where we can do that, where we can generate new life around good news. We know that we have personal griefs and losses that come from previous joys or hopes for joy, and we hold that and allow ourselves to experience it and move into a time when we're going to really find ourselves and bless ourselves, release the past, and embrace the future. And we don't want to do that alone. We do want to do that with each other, fellow humans in this cause for creating community, but we also want to do it by your Spirit. So, Holy Love, companion with us in this, companion with us as we continue to face the future for the sake of weaving together our lives and drawing in those who want to be a part of that community as well. We thank you for Plymouth United Church. We thank you for the sanctuary that gets provided, for the helps that are offered, for those programs that are stabilized by those legs, for the vision of a new future, and for the strengthening of us overall. We choose to be in this space, whether it's in the building or it's online. We choose to be in this space together because we believe that there's a greater work to be done, and that following the teachings of Jesus is one really, really good way to do that. And so we commit ourselves to that, and we share our passion. And because we do that in community, let us lift up our voices in these words of prayer as we say, "Open unto me light for my darkness. Open unto me courage for my fear. Open unto me hope for my despair. Open unto me peace for my turmoil. Open unto me joy for my sorrow. Open unto me strength for my weakness. Open unto me wisdom for my confusion. Open unto me forgiveness for my sins. Open unto me tenderness for my toughness. Open unto me love for my hates. Open unto me thyself for myself. Lord, Lord, open unto me."
Each week, we collect 2 offerings. One is for the church, which goes into our general fund for the running of the church and our ministries. The second is for the loose offering, which is sent to a designated charity, which changes each week. If you've brought your offering in person today, you're welcome to drop it in the offering box in the back. It is the glass church near the doors to the narthex. Our loose offering today will go to Houston Peace and Justice Center, which serves as an action center for peace and justice efforts. They provide peace education, activism training, and collaborative resources for individuals, families, and organizations throughout the greater Houston area to build a just, nonviolent community. If you would like to give to our general fund, to the loose offering, or to both, you can use bill pay from your bank, send us a check, use the Plymouth app, or use PushPay according to the directions on your screen. As always, thank you for supporting Plymouth and the ministries of the loose offering. Please join me in the offertory prayer. Hear us, O God,
We seek to do justice
to love kindness.
and to walk humbly with each other.
Multiply what is before you, like the loaves and the fishes.
One thing I keep forgetting to say at the announcements is that we've got percussion instruments in that back corner. I should say that at the very beginning of the service so you all run over there and get the percussion instruments and can join us. Why did I say at the end? Well, at least I said it at the end, so now you know for next time. They're just sitting back there. There's a little sign over there. Just get your little shaker or bring your own drum. I mean, it'd be absolutely fine. Marshall and I have talked about it. We know we will be messy, and we don't care. So, anyway, that's an opportunity for you going forward. Nelson George wrote an article about Angela Davis in October of 2020 for the New York Times. He writes, before the world knew what intersectionality was, the scholar, writer, and activist was living it, arguing not just for black liberation, but for the rights of women and queer and transgender people as well. Along with being an academic, a political activist, and a pop icon, Angela Davis is also a poet. This morning, as a part of our benediction, I would like to share with you her poem. It's called Finding Beauty. I went for a walk with my love. Down to an old vacant lot she took me, littered and broken up. It made me sad. It made me think of myself. I asked why she took me there. She silently smiled and took my hand and led me to a place. The pavement was cracked and the ground was heaped with garbage, old and new. Near a makeshift shelter that someone had left, she kissed my tears away, told me to smile. When I asked why, she told me to open my eyes, leaving me confused. She said to look at the beauty surrounding us, then began to point. The doorway of the crude shack was open, and there was a spider web moist with the morning dew. Small drops formed as it ran down, and it was beautiful. A few feet away, there was a daffodil growing, thriving, despite the battered tarmac through which it found us standing tall and proud, as well it should, and it was beautiful. Just then we looked up, and what did we see? A blue jay landing atop the roof and began singing its song. The sun was rising, peeking over the horizon, painting it red and orange, yellow, and even violet. The sky was its canvas, and it was beautiful. She took me home, pointing out many other things while we strolled home. When we got there, I thanked her, told her she was beautiful. She stood me in front of the mirror, telling me to find the beauty. There we stood for many long minutes. I looked, I saw, I contemplated. The sorrow carved into my features, the gentle wonder in my eyes, the scars life has left upon me. And it was beautiful. My friends, we are beautiful. And carved into our features, our griefs and gentle wonders. But we are beautiful, and each of us, with all that we have gone through and will go through, can go knowing that there is something thriving. There is that flower that's bursting forth in the tarmac. There is a sun that is bursting out somewhere, or even a moon shining gently in the darkness. So let us be beautiful together. It is time to go to whatever it is that you have next. Hopefully what you have next is staying right here for the question and answer, and that will be something that we will thrive together in. We will take questions online as well. Jeff is going to be monitoring that. I'll have a microphone so we can walk around, get your questions, and Reverend Phil will answer them. So when it is time to, we shall go forth in peace and as peacemakers. Reverend Phil?
All right. So, friends, here's how this works. One of my goals in this office as your conference minister is just total transparency. All right? Most people have no idea what a conference minister does or really interact with this office all that much at all. The other goal is to be that coach, guide, cheerleader, and friend in every one of our local churches. So it is my policy everywhere I go, and if you come to annual meeting, we'll have one of these Ask the Conference Minister sessions anyway every year, that I take time in at least this first visit for those who want to engage with me and engage with you. It's open season. Anything you want to know. I'm new, so I don't know what not to say. That's your advantage. What would you like to know? How can I help you? How can we engage together? Yes.
You talked about the chaplaincy that the association, etc. Progressive theology is obviously a minority in chaplaincy, and finding your feet and your placement in churches or in hospitals or wherever you're at is a difficult road at times. How are you going to support our chaplains? And my wife is a chaplain. Just
I
so
knew
you know where
that.
it's coming from, but what's the plans with that whole?
So a couple of things I'm working on. One is when I do get the chance to visit with chaplains, I'm hearing things that just break my heart and make me recognize the strength and resilience that is required in that particular role. And I couldn't be more proud to stand beside them as colleague and friend. One of the things I'm working on in this regard is what services can we, the church, provide to support them in those settings. And I'm really looking to them to tell me so that I can bring it about. You know, you talked about placements, and that is interesting. I am hearing different things. I am hearing from some of our chaplains who are in less progressive hospitals that their presence is really being praised by those places because they recognize the necessity of that voice. And that gives me hope. But I'm looking at everything from mental health, self-care, and resourcing through the local church to the question of how can our congregations partner with those chaplains in those places? And not just say, we see you, but we want to actively support your ministry as an authorized minister in the United Church of Christ, serving in that way. And I will land the answer to say I recognize that's an incredibly vague answer that I just gave you. but it is important. And the most important thing I can get in that regard is to hear from chaplains more and directly as to how we can support. My door is open.
Hi, Reverend Phil.
Hi.
I'm Laura, and I'm the treasurer of the church. So I, too, like Terry, thought it was sexy and exciting to hear about bookkeeping. So my first, I've got a couple of questions. My first one is, is there a timeline on this that we can look forward to as far as getting the specific information about the support?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes, the page went up on our website 2 days ago. So it will be in e-news this week and every week following the link to this page, and it's got pretty graphics, and you can see what the reports look like. You can see inside the software everything right down to what we need to get you started, paperwork-wise, all the way through here's how each month will work, here's what we will do and what we will not, and here's what it will cost. It's there. It went live 2 days ago.
Thank
So
you for
e-news
that.
this week, sign up.
We will. My second question is about a new committee that we're putting together, which is a grant writing committee. And our first meeting is going to be just in a couple of weeks after a service, and I don't know that any of us really have too much experience with grant writing, and so I was wondering if you could address, is there any support there from the SEC about guidance as to how to write grants or what grants may be available to the smaller congregations?
Here's what I'll invite you to do to make that possible. I've written some grants over the years. I know Jeremy has too. We have access to this database that lists all kinds of grants. So we can help you source things. That'll be a Jeremy question, so he's going to have to help guide you there. I stay out of that department. But once you know what you are seeking as a committee, reach out to me and let me be a part of your brainstorming. And then maybe we can help you funnel and access those different things. Does that answer your question? Okay. More questions? Yes, down here. From my cheering section this morning. This row has been a faithful cheering section.
This is kind of a generic question.
Yes.
You said something about praying a congregation down and then up. Could you speak more about that?
Preaching a
Preaching.
congregation down and then up. Here's what I've found when a new pastor comes in. That gives people who are on the edges an excuse to leave.
Yep.
Right? In times of transition, people who aren't seriously committed, they leave. And in times of pastoral transition, programs stop, new things start, somebody's hobby horse dies, they get offended. Congregations in transition shrink before they grow. We're in such a state as a conference, as the United Church of Christ. You know, every year since our formation, we have shrunk as a denomination. We've never had a year where we were actually bigger than we were the year before. Every year we've gotten smaller. And we've always wondered why. But as somebody who's grown churches, I can tell you it's because we don't have our why figured out. And it's my intention in this conference that we will. We're broad and diverse. We have conservative churches, we have progressive churches. And as I said when I was being interviewed for this office, I intend to be the conference minister to all of them. But I am not shy about my own theology. Okay? I am not shy that I am firmly convicted that progressive Christianity is the future. And that's where I am. I will support and give guidance and coaching and encouragement to everybody. But I think that's the future. You know who bears me out? Barna. Barna does studies on religion every year, and they released one just recently that said every form of Christianity in COVID has declined except one. The progressive church has grown in COVID by 1%. So we got some room to maneuver. But what I mean is that just historically, it goes like this, all right? And that's any nonprofit life cycle. There are life cycles to any nonprofit. You go up, you go down. The trick is to launch a new sigmoid curve when you're at the height as opposed to in the bottom of the barrel. And it doesn't typically happen that way. Did I answer your question at all, or did I speak in a vague circle? Okay. More questions? Keep them coming.
Um,
Yeah. Here we go. And I'll use that excuse to take a drink.
I'm sorry.
Did we put you on the spot?
No, I struggle. How do we get? I have to grieve. I have not grieved.
Okay.
I grieve over the people who are happy to now be online, who we don't see and can't communicate with.
Yeah.
And I guess that's my problem.
No, it's not a problem. That's what I want you to hear about grief. That was the message. This isn't a problem. I know. I do too. I do too. You are not alone in your grief. And there's going to come a moment where this is going to pass. We're going to come into a new reality. Is it going to look like this? Maybe. I don't know. You know, I have a clergy group that meets every Wednesday morning at 9:30 in the conference, and all are invited, chaplains too. I know they have work hours and other things they have to do, but I bring my clergy together every Wednesday for an hour, and we tackle some random theological thing. We just kind of kick it around for sport because I want us to be working through that, or maybe it's a practical problem in our life. This week we're going to talk about leadership restructuring in the local church for an hour. It'll be really fun. But you know what question comes to me every Wednesday? I get, you're a conference minister, you wear the medallion, you're smart, you're 41 and you're already a conference minister, you must know something. When is this going to end? I don't know. I don't. And I grieve with you. I grieve my friend who is 91 years old, who would hug me every Sunday at the Wichita United Church of Christ and sat down front, and her husband was a deceased former United Church of Christ pastor, and she and I would get together for tea once a week, and I haven't seen her again, and I never got to say goodbye. I'm grieving too, and that's okay. We find new ways to engage with those people we love. One of the weird things about this job is my life is a perpetual Zoom meeting. I do usually 9 a day. Between that and phone calls, that's how it works. But I'm really trying to dig in and invest and go, this is weird, all these people in little boxes. It's been a few years and it's still weird. But I'm trying to make sure that I am reaching out and connecting to those in those meetings who I know couldn't see me face to face right now. When I built Bible studies and small groups in Wichita after this happened, I was intentional about reaching out to them. And as part of my process in processing my grief, I wrote handwritten letters to congregants every week. Not very many because I ran out of steam. And I still do that. I send one note to a pastor in this conference every single day of the week to try to connect, because that's my way of processing through this and trying to make something good come from it. It's okay to grieve. It isn't going to look the same. But we can connect in a hopeful way. I want you to hear that. And I want you to know you have permission to grieve. Okay? Okay. Thank you for your honesty and your vulnerability in this conversation. You are not alone.
Well, going from that to this question, it's about what you had mentioned about these folks coming in from out of state and looking for a place to call their church home. Do you have suggestions as to how we can reach out to newcomers who may not know who we are or where we are, that we're even here?
Yes. Okay, so another one of the initiatives the conference is going to be helping you with this year. Details will come at the fall clergy training. And I'll spill a little bit now. We have a contract with a company called Mission Insight. And Mission Insight does demographic and psychographic analysis based on the same data the credit reporting agencies have about all of us, right? They know what kind of coffee we drink. They know the cars we drive. They know how we spend our money. And so this company came together and said, you know, Jesus should know that too. And every church I've ever built, I've worked with Mission Insight to build. So one of the things that we're going to do is I'm going to teach Mac when we get together in October for 24 hours or whatever it is. Bring your laptop. We're going to learn how to use this software to figure out what our mission field looks like today. One of the things I'm inviting our pastors to do in our local church, you can help with this, I need you to take your membership directory and I need you to put it into a spreadsheet. I have the spreadsheet that I can provide to you. And I'm going to upload that spreadsheet into this thing and make a data plot. And I'm going to see where you all live in relationship to your church. And then we can go in and we can say, who are our neighbors who are like us? Because like begets like, okay? We all want to be diverse. One of the things I value about the United Church of Christ is this is our value, that we are a diverse church that should look like the kingdom of God. Here's the reality. We're 85% white nationally, okay? And if you want to grow a community, your community grows like a community. So you would be better served to find out who are the people that are in my spheres of influence. Who can I connect with, all right? And we're going to find people who are like you, who think like you, and vote like you, and drink coffee like you. And we're going to say they live here, 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 and here, and here, and here's 10,000 of them. And then I'm going to show you how to send a postcard 4 times a year to engage them. You'll pick up 1% of 10,000. That'll change your life. The evangelicals have been doing this for years. There's a lot of good ideas that they've had. Their theology stinks. But they've got good ideas. So why don't we reclaim them for the gospel? More questions?
Well, I want to add on to that. So that is what I was talking about in our council group. I already have your spreadsheet, and we are working on the directory piece to be able to populate the spreadsheet is where we're at. I'm already kind of all over this and had sent message to you after the first newsletter piece for the, I think it was like a, I don't know, some sort of newsletter I get every week. And
Yeah.
You sent me the spreadsheet. So we actually are already on this. And I know for me, one of the pieces for the diversity piece is going to end up being also diversifying with how we're talking about how we're widening the circle and how we're inviting people with different abilities. So that's part of the diversity from the children's perspective.
Good. Intentionality is the key to growth. All right, if you build it, they will come ended 35 years ago when Kevin Costner shot Field of Dreams.
Just out of curiosity, what are your plans for the kids group stuff? I know some of the local stuff because my mom's leader of that, but what are your plans overall for kids stuff?
Okay, ask me the question again in your preacher voice. What are my plans for? And then I lost
What are
you.
your plans for kids stuff overall?
Okay, what are my plans for children and youth overall? I'm working on it. I'm working on it. It matters to me because I have 4 sons of my own. And I'll tell you a secret why this matters to me. When I was a local church pastor, we had the opportunity to build a congregation from the ground up. We did the If You Build It thing, they will come, and they did. Because we targeted young families. And so we had all the stuff you'd have. Most of my progressive Christians friends call what I built Six Flags Over Jesus, because it had the bouncy floors and the video game systems and the whole thing. And we packed them in. And in that space, we were able to do some real theological work and change lives. And then I got called to Wichita, Kansas, where, I'll be honest, as a pastor, my family had a rotten experience. It was an incredible church. We had incredible growth. We did some amazing things, but we weren't able to connect with people like us. And when I was elected to this office, my oldest son looked at me and he said, "Good, I don't have to go to church anymore." I'm working on it. Okay? And if you have ideas, and I mean it, talk to me. I want to hear them. All right? I wish I could give you a better answer than that, but that's the honest answer. Thank you for the question.
How could the people who aren't a chaplain or stuff like that help?
How can the people who? What? Like regular folks in the chairs, right? Yes, how can they help? Okay, now that is a brilliant question. One, Bring me ideas. I want to hear from you. I talk to pastors all the time, right? It's like an echo chamber of preachers. But I met your moderator this morning, and I told him, call me if you have a question. And that goes for anybody in this room, including you. All right? I want to hear what you're struggling with. I want to hear what brings you joy. I want to hear what's working and doesn't in the local church, because your perspective is going to be different than Max or mine. All right? We can't help but kind of be clouded by the office. So how can lay people help? At every level in the conference, there are different ways to serve. The board of directors, to whom I answer, like a church council, but they're really the only body that I have to answer to, has a youth delegate who is a voting member of that board and has oversight over me. I want to see an actual youth as the youth delegate, right? She's great, the one I've got. She's in her 20s, and she's a seminarian. She's going to be a pastor. But I'd like to see somebody who's 19 or younger speak to the life of the church and the $500,000 budget in the 60 churches, 55 churches we represent, and the chaplains I'm called to care for. At your association level here in Houston, there are ways to serve, and they should have a youth delegate. Laity can serve in our associations at the conference level, and in the local church, here's how you do it. In Wichita, we had a saying when we gave our benediction. There were a whole bunch of lines, but two of them were these. "This is our church," the leader would say, and the people would respond, "We make it what it is." This is your church, not mine or Max. This is your church. We're called by God and ordained by the United Church of Christ to serve faithfully in our offices and to care for you. You make it what it is. Dream it, imagine it, and find the resources, including this office, to help you live it. Did I answer your question? Okay. Nothing. Online has already moved on to Super Bowl prep. Friends, anything else? Please. I probably won't see you again for a year and a half, so unless you come to annual meeting. But down here again, yes? So I live for this because I only get to one place every about year and a half.
I don't exactly know how to phrase this, but Marcy and I come from a distance. You know, this is the only church that works for us.
Yeah.
And it's hard to get people to come a distance to a church. So I don't know how we think about how drawing in more people, especially in this environment. It's urban, it's sprawl, I want to have more people in our congregation. I don't know how we get people to come.
All right, so we talked about the mission insight piece, right, and the neighbors and the demographics. Here's what I know. Pre-COVID, somebody would drive half an hour to go to church in most metropolitan areas, 30 minutes. All right? Are you inside or outside that window? Outside. Okay, so you're the high side. 30 minutes. Now, here's what I would propose. If it's me, and this is what I always said in Wichita and everywhere else I've ever been, the United Church of Christ doesn't need to worry about Six Flags Over Jesus or megachurch. We leave the numbers to God. All right? We have them. It happens. We got one in Dallas. But we need to be a boutique. We need to be something unique in the marketplace. That is what gets people to drive 30 minutes plus to come to church. As you said yourself, this is the place, right? This is what works. And it happens to be this far, so I do it. What you'll find is, especially in an urban area, they've done studies on this, people are willing to drive the distance, but they don't know you're here. They just don't know. What you've got to do is pull them. It's called pull marketing. You've got to go out, you've got to reach out, you've got to get them, and you've got to bring them in. And if you do that, they will come because you are unique in the marketplace. And you do that by sharing the things that make you special. Okay? And that is how you connect. But you have to be intentional about doing it. Just wondering why they're not here yet won't do it. One of the things we did in Wichita that worked for us when I got there, they were an open and affirming congregation, both of them, when they merged. And so then we had one open and affirming congregation. And I said, okay, You're open and affirming. How do people know that? And they said, well, it's in our bulletin. And I said, when's the last time you had a visitor? And they said, 2014. I got there in 2017. I said, all right, we're going to spend $3,000. And we bought a 40-foot flagpole, and we put a 12-foot pride flag on it. And the Sunday after went it up, we had a guest. And then we had guests every single week until the pandemic, just from that. All of a sudden, they knew we were here. And we were the only church in Wichita, Kansas, with the guts to fly the flag. And the biggest pushback I got going into that was, well, what if they burn our building down? And my response was, is our insurance paid up? And they said, yes. And I said, good, we'll build a bigger one. And we did right when I left. They didn't burn it down. We sold it and built a bigger one. They're finishing that up now. We have to tell people what we believe and that we are here. We have to communicate that with boldness and grace and genuine radical welcome. If we do that, our churches grow. It frustrates me, and this is a hobby horse, when the progressive church cowers in the corner. We have to take that approach. We have to stand up proudly and be who we are. And if we do, I promise, they will still come. Did I answer your question at all, or did I just...
I'm upset that we lost. I mean, we have a good group of gay and lesbian members and trans, and we're inclusive. And we have wonderful people who are not in that group who are here. But we have lost, I want a broad swatch of the community to be here with us.
So let's talk about that for a second. You lost a group of people. How have you followed up with them? Have they gotten personal phone calls to say, hey, how you doing? Are you okay? Okay. And have they told you why they left? Yeah. Here's the thing about this moment. Every 500 years, the Christian church reforms. Did you know that we're due? Yeah, we're due. I didn't expect it to be a pandemic. I really didn't. I was hoping for something else. But we're due. What you're going to find with most people who have fallen away is they're not coming back. I used to say this as a local pastor because I found it to be true even before pandemic in growing churches. If you ask me to chase down somebody who leaves, it costs me 10% of the time as your pastor to just go get somebody new and cultivate them as it would to go chase the others down. They're leaving for a reason. That busyness has taken over. Something has taken greater priority in their life now than this. Bless them and let them go. That broader swath will come, but you need to find new people. Looking out beyond that extended table, looking at who your neighbors are. Like does beget like, and I hear the call for diversity, and I want you to have that too. As a progressive Christian church, you will get it. When I was in Oklahoma, building a church from the ground up, we were in a military town, so we targeted military families, specifically military officers with children. Why? Because military officers made enough money that they could actually tithe, all right, whereas a grunt couldn't. Military officers were more liberal in their values, and they were young enough that they had kids like mine, so like begets like, and it worked out, right? That's what we were trying to build. But we also picked up grandparents whose kids had moved away. They brought even more money and more free time and a desire to invest in the lives of those families. So all of a sudden we had small groups that were thriving. And we also found, being the only progressive church in a military town, that we were picking up LGBTQI couples, okay? And mixed race couples, and it just happened. Diversity happened because we were uniquely, unabashedly who we are in our theology and our welcome. But we picked a specific target to start, and we grew from there. So when I say like gets like, that's what I'm talking about. If you focus, you'll get that and more. If you say, y'all come, we want everybody, you won't get anybody, right? Because it just doesn't, how do you market that? It's like throwing spaghetti at a wall. Yeah. Yeah. I can help you with that. Any more? Anything, friends?
Yep. I got an online question. Yeah.
Hey, all right.
All right. Yeah. So kind of question statement, but we have folks that do show up. So we do have guests that come, but the desire is to actually get them to keep coming back, right? So it's like sometimes it's kind of like a one and done, or maybe once or twice,
Yep.
and then they're not showing back up. So how do we kind of capture those folks that do show up in the past 2 years, and how do we get them to keep coming back?
Okay, let's talk about that. That's a great question, okay? And that's a question that I love. I like to build things, so I love this stuff. I could talk about it all day, except there's the Super Bowl, so I won't. But I will say this. A couple of things. Your online engagement, you want to think about how are we encouraging those who are worshiping with us online to actually give us their digits, okay? Whether it's how many of them convert to giving in that moment so we can capture some information about them, or even those that don't give through that means in that moment. Is there an online attendance card, and how do we get them to fill it out? So we have their digits. So that then within 24 hours, somebody in this congregation who is not named Mac sends them an email and says, hey, I'm so-and-so from Plymouth, and I'm so excited you were here and worshiping right alongside me this week. What questions do you have for me about the church that I can answer? I hope to connect with you again next week. And please let me know if there's a way I can pray for you daily by name over the course of the next 7 days until we gather together in the presence of God again. God bless you. Sincerely, Blau. That's one. Other prong. When they are here in this room, how do you capture their information? How do you do it? You need some type of attendance card, which is not threatening, but peer pressure works really well. When they see other people doing it, they'll do it too, okay? Passing the book is antiquated. I like postcards. If I'm going to use a book, I want something really classy and nice looking, not a narrow little attendance pad, lots of room to write, so they'll write legibly and you can make it out. Then somebody's going to collect those, and within 24 hours, a handwritten note's going to go out saying, hey, I'm Betty, and I worship at Plymouth with you this week, and I'm so glad you were here. Here's why I love Plymouth. I hope to see you again next week. Please reach out to me and find me by my name tag, because I'd love to greet you by name. God bless you, Betty, from Plymouth Church. Then, when they come back the second time, they're going to get a phone call from Mac saying, hi, I'm the pastor, and I'm so glad you were in worship or online with us this last week, and I want to know, if you're willing to share with me, what spoke to your heart this week? Where are you having a challenge in your life or connecting into the broader community? Don't say, I'm going to help you with that. Just ask those questions, and then say, how can I pray for you? And then pray with them on the phone. And say, will I see you next week? Come and introduce yourself to me. I want to meet you. All right? What you're doing is you're building a process where you'll continually have a connection. One of the things that I always did before this was I had people at the doors who would greet and hold the doors, but then they would turn over new people to connectors. We had big signs to show you where to go, sanctuary, bathrooms, in every building I've ever been in, because I think that matters. But I had what were called connectors planted in the congregation. I had people in every congregation I've served who I knew I didn't want to meet new people, right? But I had connectors to make sure that didn't ever happen. They were the bubbly ones who knew how to ask preloaded questions and get information from new people in a way that put them at ease. And they'd make sure they found the bathroom and found the coffee and got popcorn. In one of my churches, we served popcorn every Sunday. It was like if you've ever walked into the Magic Kingdom at Disney World, you go through a tunnel, and they pump in the smell of hot buttered popcorn when you walk through the tunnel. So you get onto Main Street and you go buy popcorn or food, you're hungry. I took that and put that in the church, and it worked. And so it was popcorn. It was messy in the sanctuary, but we lived with it. And it got people at ease. They got comfortable. We're looking for ways to do that. But it's a process of continually connecting with people. And if you do that, here's what I've found. After 6 connections, they join the church. And you got them. They're home. That's it. Because by then, over the course of these connections, you're finding ways to plug in people. Say, we got a small group over here. Where are your theological growing edges? How do you want to grow spiritually? We've got this over here. We do this. We're going to funnel you into this. Or you like this particular thing. We garden. I noticed you have a garden thing. We have a garden. We do this. Why don't you come and help me? It's on Tuesdays at 3. Oh, that doesn't work? How about Saturdays at 4? Right? It's finding ways to source how to engage that and then pushing it to make it work. That's how you do it. Answer the question? Okay. It's a lot. I mean, it's a big question. There's a lot of things that go into that. Going once, going twice. Okay, friends, thank you for staying and hanging with me. Thank you for the one who graciously brought me this water. Thank you for the cheering section this morning about the money part. Thank you for your welcome and your warmth and every single question, and helping me remember that it's not just one pole or the other in the church that the conference minister serves, it's every age in this church. And I look forward to being your partner on this journey. I look forward to cheering you on. I look forward to seeing what God will do, because never, 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 never do we walk this road alone. Amen.